Going through a divorce is, let's be honest, incredibly tough. And if you're in Gilbert, Arizona, trying to sort out all the financial stuff on top of everything else, well, it can be a huge source of stress. A big question that almost always pops up involves the house, and specifically, who's on the hook for the home appraisal fee? So yeah, let's just tackle that question head on. You're getting divorced in Gilbert, you've got a house, and you need an appraisal. Who pays? It's a really important question because that appraisal is what sets the value for what's probably your single biggest asset together.
Okay, so the first thing you need to know is that Arizona law doesn't actually have a hard and fast black and white rule that says this person pays. But, and this is a big but, that doesn't mean it's just a total Wild West. There are definitely some very common, very fair ways this gets handled, and we're going to break those down right now.
All right, first up, let's talk about what usually happens. These are the go-to solutions that most couples land on, especially when they're trying to work things out amicably. It really boils down to two main options, and the logic behind them just makes sense. The first, and maybe the simplest, is to just split the cost 50-50. Why? Because getting a neutral, fair market value for the house helps both of you. It sets a fair starting point for negotiations. The other really common way to do it is for the spouse who's planning to keep the house to cover the appraisal cost. You can kind of think of it as one of the costs of doing business when you're buying out your ex's share of the home.
But what if you can't agree? It happens. Maybe you have totally different ideas about what the house is worth, or you just can't agree on which appraiser to hire. So what's the game plan then? And who pays? This chart lays it out pretty clearly. If you get to a point where you each decide to hire your own appraiser to get a second opinion, the rule of thumb is simple. You pay for your expert and they pay for theirs. Now, if you manage to agree on hiring a third neutral appraiser to sort of break the tie, you typically just go back to that 50-50 split for that specific one.
So let's imagine you've tried to work it out, but you're just at a complete stalemate. This is when the court might have to step in and make the call for you. How does a judge, right here in Maricopa County, typically look at this situation? The key thing to understand here is a legal concept called judicial discretion. It sounds complicated, but it's not. All it means is that a judge isn't stuck with some rigid formula. They have the flexibility to look at the specifics of your case, your finances, your situation, and make a decision that they feel is the most fair and equitable. So what kinds of things is the judge looking at? Well, they're going to weigh a few factors. They'll look at who has the higher income and can more easily afford it. They'll consider who really benefits the most from the appraisal, which is often the person who wants to keep the house. And they'll look at the big picture, the whole property division, to make sure that adding this one cost doesn't throw the whole settlement out of balance. And this brings us right back to where we started. This quote really nails what happens in practice, right here in the Gilbert area. Even if you end up in court, judges in Maricopa County will most likely land on one of those two common sense solutions: split it or have the spouse who's keeping the house pay for it. Okay, so we've covered the what ifs and the hows, but what can you actually do right now? Let's switch gears and talk about a clear, practical game plan to help you move forward. Here are 3 simple steps. First, go check any documents you already have. Look at any temporary orders from the court or mediation agreements. The answer might already be written down for you. Second, if it's not, be proactive. Talk to your spouse and suggest one of these fair plans. And third, if you're really and truly stuck, talk to a local family law attorney. They know the Gilbert courts, they know the local judges, and they can give you advice that's tailored specifically for you. Just to give you a sense of what we're actually talking about here, money-wise, for a divorce appraisal in the Gilbert area, you're typically looking at a cost somewhere in the $300 to $700 range. Now, that's not nothing, for sure, but knowing the actual ballpark number can make the whole idea of negotiating it feel a lot less intimidating. So, there you have it. While there isn't one single rule that applies to everybody, you're now armed with the common sense solutions and the typical paths forward. You can negotiate, you can compromise, or if you have to, you can let the court decide. The real power is just in understanding your options. So the question you should be asking yourself now is, for your unique situation, what is the most fair and equitable path forward?